I did a live draft this weekend, and pause before you judge me for drafting in June. It is with good reason. This draft is part of a massive charity tournament called the Scott Fish Bowl. Thousands of people participate, which is why it has to start right now. Thousands of people participate. I participated in it for multiple years now. It is literally one of my favorite leagues, if not my favorite. I mean, I can't really pick favorites, right? But it is one of my favorites. Like, it's so much fun. I love playing in it. When I started doing the tournament, it was only online, and then they started doing live drafts. So I've done this live draft in Houston for 3 straight years. This year we had 5 different Houston leagues. Yes, that is right. 60 live drafters for 5 different leagues at the same time, same place. I highly recommend that you join in 2027. It is such a wonderful experience and community building. You see the same people year after year. You meet new people. You talk draft strategy live. It's absolutely a cannot miss event. Now, I do have to explain some things as I show the draft board here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through. We draft the first 10 rounds. It's quite a long roster that you have, and we draft the first 10 rounds in person here. So I will show you the first 10 rounds here. I'm going to walk you through everything that happened, my strategy, but I do have to walk you through the scoring settings first, because if you're looking at my draft board, you're looking at me trying to figure out, Tara, what the heck were you doing? And it'll make sense once I explain the scoring to you, because it is a very unique scoring, which is why it's so much fun. It's one of my favorite to participate in because, again, it's so unique. It is a Superflex league, and it's tight end premium, no position spots. Now, things got switched up a little bit this year. My strategy, I try to be flexible, but you do it so many times, right? That you understand, what can get you to the playoffs, right? It's thousands of people. You want to get to the playoffs and be able to make a run. So my strategy with this Superflex league has been typically, and really Superflex in general, right? But has been typically to invest in a round 1 quarterback, particularly a rushing quarterback, right? And then push back as far as possible to target a mid to low end QB with rushing upside. My favorite player to draft in this league year after year, there was literally, I think, 1 year where I wasn't able to get him and had to settle for Jalen Hurts. But it's been Lamar Jackson. I drafted Lamar last year, and yes, before you ask, because I drafted Lamar last year, I did still make the playoffs despite Lamar being a complete nightmare because Mac Jones came through. So shout out to Mac Jones on that one. But this year was different, and it's funny because you get to sign up for your draft spot, right? You get to choose. It's not random. So as you're signing up, you get to pick your strategy in terms of where you want to draft. And I chose the 108 because historically, for me, drafting between the 106 and 110 in this league has been a very successful strategy, right? Especially because they've typically done a 3rd round reversal, which means that everything switches up in the 3rd round. And so it gives you a little bit of an advantage to draft a little later there, but I don't like to push it too far back. I like a nice middle ground there, especially because, it allows me to be able to look at the board and try and figure out, what my strategy is. I know there's a stop point in terms of who I would like to target at the 108. So that was a nice safe pick for me. Unfortunately, the scoring settings changed. And there were some new bonuses added in, but not unfortunately, because that actually makes it more fun this time around here. So let me show you guys the scoring settings here. The basic scoring settings, 6 points for all touchdowns, 2 points for 2-point conversion, right? Nice and standard. 0.4 per yard passing yards, right? 0.04, sorry about that. 0.1 for rushing and receiving yards, half point for first down, both rushing and receiving, which historically has meant that running backs do come on a premium, right? And so I don't love being robust RB, but it does tend to work out in your favor, or has worked out in your favor, right? And then a half point per reception, and then bonuses, it is tight end premium. You get an extra point per reception and an extra point for a first down. So tight ends obviously are very, very beautiful in this tournament. Now I will say, I have not always felt compelled to take tight ends early because, again, I like to push it back. I don't have a problem with that, but we'll get into my strategy as it unfolded here. But the big difference here was these video game bonuses that I think are absolutely going to be crazy and result in players scoring probably like 80 to 100 points at times during certain games. So you get an extra 10 points for 300 passing yards, an extra 10 points for 400 passing yards. Yes, that's right. The ability to double up on a big game there. And this one is very interesting here. 10 points for rushing plus receiving yards. I think I'm going to mention that as I kind of walk through my strategy there. An extra 10 once you get over 200. And then here are the key bonuses that make this really tilt towards pass catchers. 10 points for 40 plus yard for both passing and receiving, and then 10 for a 20 plus yard reception. That is very key here, right? So before I dive into my strategy, I think our league was very sharp. Look at my sharp league mates here. They're so wonderful. These are brand new settings. So that means that every single league is going to look very different this year. Like with regular Superflex, right? You know that early on, there's going to be a QB run. It is what it is, right? Because it's Superflex. But with this being so tilted towards pass catchers now, it changed things up. And I was kind of hoping that our league would look at this more and say, we're Superflex, we're still sticking, let's do this nice QB run. Nope, our league did not. Unfortunately. So it meant that I had to adjust on the fly because I was really hoping that I was going to get a high-end pass catcher. And wouldn't you know it, two of the guys that I wanted went right off the board immediately, right before my pick. So I had to pivot there. Supposedly, but again, like if you're participating in Scott Fishbowl, right? Or if you're looking across, and if you're not participating, you can do satellite leagues and stuff. And you can still look at and see like all over social media in terms of what people's different strategies are and what their teams are. So it's fun if you want to go check that out. I did not look at, we had 5 different leagues drafting. I did not look at the other draft boards. Usually I do. I did not this year. Supposedly there was a league where Bijan fell to the late first, which is going to be just very interesting, right? Because again, I mentioned that rushing plus receiving, and for Bijan, I mean, it feels like that's going to be an automatic 10 point, just boom, 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 right? So I was surprised that happened. But again, I didn't see that board because I was talking too much. So this event was at the Karbach Brewing Company. Shout out to them, which also means that obviously we were drinking, right? So I'm drinking, right? I'm having a good time. I'm having conversations. I haven't seen a lot of these people in a long time. So I'm just kind of chat. And I might have got a little bit distracted, maybe. But let's dive into my strategy here. I picked from the 108. Again, you selected your draft slot. That was the one that I wanted. That was my preference, right? Yeah. But once I knew the adjusted scoring settings, I adjusted. And I had a very clear plan. I knew that I was fading quarterback, like 100%. That was not a question. There was nobody that could have fell to that position that would have made me say, oh, well, you know what? If Josh Allen at night, nope. I was very certain that I was fading quarterback. Again, I've talked about it a lot in videos with you guys this offseason. I like a lot of QB2, so I don't feel like it's necessary to aggressively push with one of those top 12 quarterbacks, right? Or even top 10, top 5, right? If you get it, right? It's not a bad thing. They're all wonderful. But even in Superflex, don't feel like you have to be compelled, right? So I knew I was fading quarterback. I wanted a receiver. Puka and JSN went right before I was hurt, guys. Oh, God. I was so hurt. I had delusions that there might be, some skepticism and fear around Puka and his off-the-field antics, and that he could fall to me and I'd take Puka and just sail away with victory. But no, didn't fall to me. So I was very torn right here. I was torn between, do I go with Amon-Ra, who obviously is very safe, very secure, going to thrive in this format, right? Or do I go with a tight end? I never go with a first round tight end, even in tight end premium. I don't do it. I love my ability to identify late round tight ends, right? Again, I'm not a typical early tight end drafter. Last year, I drafted Kittle because there was a little nice discount gap between him and the other top options in like literally around round 3 or 4. Yes, again, I drafted Lamar and Kittle with several of my first picks, and I still managed to make it to the playoffs. Miracles happen. If you try hard, you can do anything in life, right? But what held me over, again, was that I do think I'm very good at identifying late tight ends. So I had drafted, guys like Arande Gadsden. Whew, thank you, Lord. Juwan Johnson pulled through for me. So I trust myself to be able to fade tight end and profit later. But the board fell to me. And I felt compelled. To take a new strategy there. Trey McBride. If it was Brock Bowers, it would have been an easier choice, right? But Brock went first, and so Trey McBride. And this is, again, guys, and I speak very glowingly of Trey McBride, but the thing is that this is a massive charity tournament, and there is risk associated with Trey McBride. So in a tournament, right, you're more inclined to take riskier picks. I mean, and we've talked about the risk of the Cardinals offense. I have the utmost confidence that Trey McBride is the first look in this offense again. I do expect a bounce back from Marvin Harrison Jr., which ultimately will push Michael Wilson back a little bit as well there. And we obviously have the addition of Jeremiah Love. But at the end of the day, year after year, Trey McBride has been the most reliable option in this offense. And you guys know that I really trust Jacoby Brissett, right? So all things equal, if I were to know for a fact that Carson Beck was not a threat and not going to play at any point, and that I was getting Jacoby Brissett 100% of the season, I would feel super, super comfortable with this pick. But there is the associated risk of what happens if Carson Beck comes in. Now, my hope, and it's fun, which is why I love this tournament and live drafting, because I was having this conversation with one of my league mates. The thing is that our hope here is that Jacoby Brissett can get the contract that he is looking for, like just a little something, right, that will make him less disgruntled. Because at some point, because we know that this team is going to lose, and lose, right? We know that at some point they're going to have to put Carson Beck on the field and see, is this man capable of being someone that we could build around, or do we use what should be our first overall pick, right, to go ahead and draft our franchise quarterback, right? So they're going to have to put him on the field. The question is if he gets on the field and he is objectively awful, do they have the ability to go back to Jacoby Brissett? Is he okay? Does he understand? Did the contract make him feel good? Or does he pull I don't want to compare him to Justin Fields because he was a lot more successful than Justin Fields last year, but Justin Fields objectively refused to go back on the field, essentially, right? Not really, but you get injured, right? And then you don't go back onto the field, right? Because you're disgruntled. So why would you? They already disrespected you. Why would you go back on? So that's the fear. So we're hoping that he can get that contract and that he can understand, like, hey, maybe they test him out for a little bit and then they go back for you. But ultimately, this all does hinge on Jacoby Brissett. And if Carson Beck can end up not being a mess, right? And there's the possibility that he does end up, he comes on there and he relies on his tight end, Trey McBride, who was the most reliable pass catcher versus just kind of mailing it downfield to Marvin Harrison Jr. So there's ways that we can work around this. At the end of the day, the bonuses for this man in this league, he's well worth the first round pick here, so I had to go with it. Now, when it came to my second round pick, I knew I wanted another pass catcher, didn't want a running back. But the wide receivers just weren't hitting for me right here. And the guys that were available was just kind of like, So I felt compelled again. And I took another tight end. Now, for me, you guys know I like Tyler Warren a lot. Colston, Loveland, and Tyler Warren are very, very close for me. And I do low-key, like all things in a typical league, right? I do think that I prefer Warren a little bit more. But given the bonus for the 20-yard receptions here, my gut said to take Loveland over Warren. Both Warren and Loveland had 10, 20-plus yard receptions last season, but Loveland wasn't the main guy for the majority of the season, so imagine what he could do on a full season as the main guy, and potentially the first look over both Luther Burden and Rome Odunze here. So I genuinely think his upside is literally overall tight end 1, right? Especially in this format. So, yeah, I'm not one that typically leans this heavy tight end. It makes me uncomfortable, but it could pay off if they both hit right, so I had to do it. I had to do it. Now, third round comes around, and I go with Chris Olave. This is pretty easy for me. Tyler Shough is one of my preferred quarterbacks to target, so drafting Chris Olave here would mean that I could execute the stack. When it comes to tournament play, stacks are extremely critical. If it hits, it can just be a cheat code for you on week after week after week, right? You're getting that extra boost of the connection there. So they both go off. You both get those bonuses. It works out perfectly here. So when I was looking around, while there were other receivers that I did like in this area, the one that made the most sense for me because I knew I would have the ability to stack it is Chris Olave. And I think it was good value for him as well right here. Now, coming around to the fourth round pick, this is where I really struggled to make a choice here. Again, drinks were flowing, conversations were happening. In my plan mentally, and I like to be flexible, right? But my plan heading into this draft was a Mahomes Rice stack. Given this bonus settings, if they play a full healthy season together, it made way too much sense. But the problem here is that I knew I wasn't going to be able to stack them because I took Olave first. I did the math and I'm like, oh crap, Tara. Okay, this is not a possible stack for you. So now I had to make the decision. What's more important to me? Patrick Mahomes or Rashee Rice. Now, if I took Patrick Mahomes, I could still stack it with Xavier Worthy, right? Or Travis Kelce. But you guys know I don't really believe it's Xavier Worthy, although the bonuses could be very interesting for him if he actually does pull through. So, side note on that. And Travis Kelce, tight end volume, receptions are still going to be there. Touchdowns won't be that super high. But again, and especially if something goes sideways with Rashee Rice, he would have, significant upside, theoretically. He is aging. But in a tournament setting where I need to go big or go home, Rice does have the highest upside of all of those pass catchers. And because so many teams going after me had a quarterback, there was a chance that Mahomes might make it back around. I knew he wasn't going to, but I knew for sure Rice was not going to be on the board there, so I had to go with Rice here. Now, my fifth round pick, this one was super easy for me. I think I made this literally that. Emeka Egbuka, come on down here to this team. I love this pick, and I love the upside, and I love what he could be. Oh, God. I love what he could be in this tournament. I love Emeka Egbuka in general right here, but he's such a high upside play in this scoring settings. Again, we talk 1,000 times about what we saw in the beginning of 2025 there, and the fact that I genuinely believe that he is the wide receiver one. We could have maybe a bounce back from Chris Godwin to be, I don't know, man. I think he hit a wall, though, unfortunately. Again, I do like Ted Hurst. I'm going to send this video to my league mates, and we're still drafting. We're still in the middle of the draft. I don't know what, I'm in round 10, or no, we're in round 12, maybe, right now. So if they see this and they're like, well, she's speaking so glowingly of Tampa, but she's probably going to draft Ted Hurst at some point. Yeah, I could put literally four Tampa Bay Buccaneers on my team. Don't test me. I might do it. We'll see. Because I love the potential bounce back for this offense in general. We have to acknowledge that Baker was playing injured last season. The offensive coordinator was punching well above his skill set, unfortunately. We got a new OC in here that while... How was Atlanta's pass game? You know what? He got the best he could out of Kirk Cousins. Zach Robinson did at OC. We saw a lot of high upside games from Drake London here. So I do think he, again, comes from a good system with Sean McVay. So I like this fit for them in terms of this getting Tampa back to a flow that more benefits Baker Mayfield and somebody that can actually run this offense correctly. Yes, so this was a no-brainer for me, Emeka Egbuka, and the upside that he could have here. Now, my 6th round pick, I'm not going to lie, guys. I tilted here. I was thrown off so bad. I was sniped on Josh Jacobs. My heart was set. He was queued up. I had a plan. God. And they knew this. They knew I was sniped. They knew it. It was so funny. Getting sniped live is special. I knew that I didn't want a quarterback here. So that was already next. None of the receivers appealed to me here. So that was next, right? And as I'm looking at running back, I was just so tied to Josh Jacobs. But unfortunately, and I had other running backs that I did want and had queued up, but those were running backs that could easily go later. I would have been overdrafting them, and I didn't want to overdraft them, right? The only player that felt very safe to pick here was Javonte Williams, or go 3 deep at tight end with Harold Fannin Jr. or Kyle Pitts. As you guys can see, my draft definitely played heavy towards ceiling and upside versus floor. So I got very nervous, right? And I pivoted off of my high ceiling because the high ceiling play would have been to go with Kyle Pitts, probably, right? But I got very nervous, unfortunately. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go with Javonte here. I don't hate it. I just don't love it. And I don't think that he has got extremely high upside, unfortunately, because the touchdowns obviously are going to tilt heavily through CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. And he's not, he gets receptions, but he's not breaking off massive runs after checkdowns. So, it didn't inspire me. I don't hate it. It's safe, but I think this one is going to haunt me mentally of tilting away from the upside. Now, my 7th round pick, Tyler Shough. Before you judge me, pause. Because I know you're judging me. I know it. I can see it in you. Let me explain myself here because I know you're looking at this draft board. I know it's the first thing that caught your eye, right? When you opened up that video, you were ready to drop a comment. You're judging me for drafting Tyler Shough over several other quarterbacks. Guys, I wanted the stack. I wanted it. Remember, if your stack hits in a large field, that's huge. And yes, I could have taken Matt Stafford, but I couldn't stack him with anybody, unfortunately. So it didn't speak to me, unfortunately, here. Now, if you look at the draft board, and here's where I'm going to walk you through it, there is only one team picking after me in that order, right, that had any quarterbacks. For some reason, those of us drafted in the back half, we were very simpatico in terms of strategies. We were like, we're all fading quarterback, right? That was our, were we in a voting block? Was that our choice? I don't know. But as I'm looking at it, right, know your league mates and know the board. There was a really good chance that Tyler Shough was not making it back to me as I'm looking through ADP and I'm looking at them and they're looking at me and I'm like, I don't think I'll get my man. So yes, I could have drafted Stafford and Purdy and hoped that Shough was going to make it around the turn so that I could stack it, but I just didn't buy it was going to happen. So I took my boy so I could get my stack there. Tournament play. And I did end up talking to Ryan, who was drafting 2 picks after me, was a very sharp drafter and did excellent last year. He did, in fact, confirm Tyler Shough would have been gone. So at least I can rest easy knowing that, hey, I made an assessment and the assessment was correct. 8th round, I took Cam Skattebo. This is one of those running backs where I said that I liked earlier, but I knew there was no point in drafting earlier because he was going to be there later. I like him. I think he's very interesting in this format, right? Because I like, as you guys know, I've been a little critical of Jackson Dart, who might be a legitimate liability in this format. Not gonna lie, I don't see a lot of 300 passing yard games from him, unfortunately. Prove me wrong, man. I hope. But I do still like other options in this offense, Cam Skattebo being one. So based on the amount of receptions that he got last year, and obviously that could change, new scheme, but he looked very competent. I took Skattebo as a target here because I think he is a sneaky candidate to get that 100 plus rushing plus receiving yard bonus this year very frequently. I can see a lot of 70 on the ground and 30 through the air. So it was just a matter. I wanted him for sure. I knew, I'm looking at him and I'm like, yeah, I think this is my dude right here. And it was just a matter of how far back I wanted to push it. And I felt like this was the right spot because if I lost him, I would have been disappointed for sure. Unfortunately, it made me lose out on another player that you guys know that I love Quentin Johnston, right? And in this format, it could hit huge. Rick Powers over here doesn't know how bad he hurt me multiple times, actually, taking Jameson, who obviously can have massive upside in this format, Jameson Williams and Quentin Johnston. Those were the 2 that I really wanted so bad. Again, you guys know that I wanted Quentin Johnston. And in terms, I talked about how Mahomes Rice stack was an ideal for me. The other stack, other than, Shough and Olave, right? The other stack that was a real plan ahead for me was Jameson Williams and Jared Goff. I think it could feed generations, and I'm crying still to this day that I did not get to do that, right? Because Jared Goff, I talked about it a little in Strength of Schedule video if you want to check that out. Jared Goff Into season schedule, back half of the season schedule. Good God, guys. Yeah, and Superflex, you want Jared Goff, especially if you got any bonus settings because of the amount of dome games that man is in, and the fact that even when he's not in a dome, he's in a nice location as well, not in like a terrible, like, oh my God, we got to go out to Green Bay. I think there's like one game at the end of the playoffs maybe, but for the most part, there's a nice run there where he is going to have dome, 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 and dome. It's like 6 out of 7 game stretch there where it's beautiful. So just keep that in mind, right? I really did want Quentin Johnston. I thought that bias would help push him back a little bit further. I didn't get my wish. So I don't regret Skattebo with this pick, but I do wish that I had Quentin Johnston here and tried to push Scat to the next round. But I also think that Skattebo would have been gone. So apples to apples, I was missing out on something, right? Ninth round pick. Since Johnston was off the board, nothing really compelled me here. So I thought, hey, I like a lot of, I got options at late round quarterbacks, right? I'm not feeling like I have to push it. But this was a nice spot to just go ahead and stack Baker with Emeka. Again, if it hits, it hits. And we get one of those, we get that year before, right? We knew that there was going to be some regression with Baker last season, but if he can bounce back with a lot of positive regression there, I feel like that right there could pay off in a tournament format here. So I feel good about making that stack. I didn't have to reach for it. It was just kind of there. I'm like, sure, Baker. And compared to other options on the board, it felt like the right play there. Now, 10th round here. This was the last round that we did live. Once you get to this kind of point here, you're just taking your guys, right? And Kenneth Gainwell is my guy. I don't trust Bucky. And again, if something goes sideways with Bucky, you get the yards on the ground plus the receptions there. And plus, yes, this is a little sneaky double stack here. I love a tournament double stack, right? For sure. It's like I love a double stack. Now, usually, obviously, it's a double stack with a tight end, but Kadon ain't really hitting on much, right? So the receptions, sneaky with Kenneth Gainwell, could pay off here. So it's a sneaky little double stack here. I'm very interested in it, especially again because I don't trust Bucky. Now let's talk about my league mates here, who again, lovely people did a lovely job here. I love unique drafting strategies. I am very interested to see how the drafter out of the 12th spot pans out here, going wide receiver heavy, right? Because every year you have people that say, hey, like I'm taking a strategy. You'll have someone that goes heavy tight end, someone that goes heavy running back, and heavy wide receiver here. And I think it could really, like it could be massive boom opportunities for him. So I'm very interested to see how that pays off. I love that strategy. I think it was well executed there. The person drafting out of the 9th spot took a running back heavy approach, which again is interesting because it pivots off of everyone else's strategy, right, of pass catchers. So because that happened, you end up with getting good value on the running backs here. So he went very high upside running backs with heavy pass catching upside. If it hits, if all those people, again, these are high upside plays, right? They're risk, right? The CMC is a risk. But if it hits healthy, right, it could absolutely crush in this format because of the bonuses there. The 10th spot was very interesting. You'll notice a lot of pass catchers that are a little bit more controversial, right? But they all have something in common, the potential for those 20 plus receiving yards, 20 plus receiving yards bonus. Courtland Sutton could have a very mediocre year in redraft, but absolutely thrive in this format because he catches a couple 20 plus, a couple big plays, and then boom, there you go, 20 points there. So I think that is very interesting. I've talked to you guys about my worry about Ted McMillan's volume. Again, know your format, because this is the perfect place for him where he could, have those games where he's getting 3 receptions on 7 targets, but 3 of those receptions can be, 20 plus yard catches. So it can absolutely work out here. This format would definitely favor him. And finally, again, shout out to the Carbach Brewing Company for hosting this event. Wonderful place, great food. I am a hard seltzer drinker. You guys don't know that about me. I prefer hard seltzer to a beer. I know. You probably like Terra, but hey, look, that's my preference, right? And there's a really good here. So selections all around. So shout out to them. And again, I cannot recommend the Scott Fish Bowl enough. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun. It's a great cause. And it's just a wonderful experience and a wonderful community to get involved with. And if you want to, you fortunately can't do it for 2026, but go ahead and apply for 2027. And I know you're saying, dang, 2027, that's nowhere near. You need to do it now. You want to get in as early as possible in a stiff competition to get in. I'm not going to lie. But a little tip here. It is easier to get in if you do the live drafts, because we want more live drafters because it's so much fun. Like, we were literally talking at the draft about how we want to increase it. We had 4 leagues drafting live. I think it started at 3. We had 4 leagues last year. We had 5 this year. We want to get it to 6, 7, 8. We want to get as many live drafters as humanly possible. So again, if you're in the area of any of these locations, apply for a live draft. It is so much fun. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Tara Time. I am also live every Wednesday on YouTube at 8 p.m. EST, so make sure that you stop by and chat. It is always a good time. You can ask me any questions that you want. You can also subscribe to my Substack if you want to support me another way. And if you are looking for new fantasy football tools in 2026, look at Player Profiler. You can use my promo code TARA for 25% off at Player Profiler.